Oh, hello there. Happy Festivus. Merry Chrysler. I didn't see you. I was enjoying the fire. See, it's a bitter cold evening here in the great state of Ohio. Trying to get warm. But I guess while you're here, why don't we talk about Black Christmas? What's up, everybody? It's Nick here at the Lost River Drive-In, continuing the Fireside Chats series. And tonight, we are going to be talking about Black Christmas 1974. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Fireside Chat format, you know that it's not so much a review as these are me really heaping praise on a movie, why I like it, and why it's in my annual rotation at Christmas time. I don't really get into the plot. I don't do any of that. You guys have seen these movies, and if you haven't seen them, me giving you the plot isn't going to sell you on it. But me telling you why I love it might. So that's kind of what we do here. Where to start with Black Christmas 1974? When you make a holiday-themed horror film, or just film in general, you're kind of already up against it, because you're essentially saying, this movie is only for one time of year. Now, you can watch it other times of year, but it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't give you what you want to get out of it unless you're watching it around the time of year that it's made to be watched. So you're already up against it. And there are very few that have the staying power that are annual watches and that are inarguably classics. Black Christmas is one of them. Now, you guys know me, I'm a Halloween guy, obviously. It's my favorite holiday, and it's my favorite film. Black Christmas is right there with Halloween for its classic nature and its timelessness, and how it is a staple every December. And if you're someone like me, I usually watch it at least once, sometimes twice. This year I'll be watching it twice because I watched it the first day, I want to say right after Thanksgiving. So I'll watch it again right before Christmas. But what is it about Black Christmas that makes it live on? Well, first and foremost, you have some incredible performances in this movie. Olivia Hussey, obviously. I first saw her in the It miniseries in the 90s when I was a kid. Had no idea she was in this because I hadn't seen this movie yet back then. Olivia Hussey is great in this movie. Absolutely great. She really, really is. Sometimes with older movies, the acting might not always hold up. Hers definitely does. Margot Kidder. It's crazy to see her in this movie 50 years ago, to see how young she was and vibrant she was. And Margot, even as she got older, was very vibrant, very out there. Just a character. I loved that about her. John Saxon. I mean, come on. Come on. If you're a horror fan, you know John Saxon. Obviously, one of the movies you probably first think of is A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's one I think of. But put some respect on the man's name, because he's in Black Christmas as well beforehand, and he's damn good in it. On top of that, there's an atmosphere here. See, one of the things I was surprised about when I first checked this movie out was to find out who it was written and directed by. Bob Clark. You mean A Christmas Story, Bob Clark. Huh? Wow, that's something. And boy, is it. You go watch A Christmas Story, and you'll find little things here and there, I'm sure. But it is a total night and day difference from this film to that film, obviously. Bob Clark brings something to this movie. There is a sense of foreboding throughout this entire movie. We as the audience know that somebody is in the house. We as the audience know that people are being picked off one by one. And we assume it's Billy. But our main characters don't know. They're being harassed. Is it a frat boy? Is it an ex-boyfriend? Is it a current boyfriend? Who knows? That sense of foreboding permeates this movie throughout and really, really, really grabs you and is what pulls you into this movie entirely. Without that, this movie just doesn't work. If you're going to tell a slow burn like this, you've got to deliver on the burn. And Bob Clark delivers on the burn. This movie was also very, I don't know, what word do I want to say? Progressive for its time in the sense of tackling the issue of abortion. That's a major plot point in this movie. Jess wants to get rid of the baby. Her boyfriend does not. He wants to keep it. And that is a point of contention with them throughout this entire movie, and gives her reason to actually kind of suspect him for being the mysterious caller and eventually being the person inside the house. It even makes the audience question it sometimes. It makes the police. Very, very interesting. But at its core, that is a really, really unique idea, especially for the time in the early 70s, to really be tapping into and addressing that social issue. So, good on Black Christmas for that. I've heard that the 2019 film takes some of its themes of feminism and whatnot from that basic idea. The difference is, it's done well here. 2019, I've had my way with it. I'm not going to talk about it. Don't worry. The atmosphere in this movie is just breathtaking. Whether it's the cinematography by Reg Morris, which is just genuinely like, it feels cold, it feels desolate, it feels hopeless almost, while at the same time there's these kind of cheery scenes, these holiday-filled, vibe-filled scenes, whatever the hell you want to call it. And it's a really nice juxtaposition. I think that the atmosphere, it feels like Christmas, it looks like Christmas, it sure as shit feels cold outside. It really, really does. This doesn't seem like this was shot on a set, that this is all manufactured. It feels very lived in. It feels very real. So I've got to give credit where credit is due with that. Also, this movie is brutal for a 1974 movie. If you haven't watched this movie in a while, or if you haven't watched it at all, you might find yourself, as you're going through this movie, being genuinely surprised at some of the things that the caller says. I mean, some of the words that he uses, the noises, it's pretty out there. And it's pretty grotesque. Add on top of that, some of the kills are incredibly mean-spirited. Incredibly mean-spirited. And that's delicious. I love that. There's nice comedy sprinkled throughout this movie too. It's interesting. It's Bob Clark clearly showing that he has that comedic bone in him as well, but it's just there for moments of levity, and it's not overdone. But the movie has this overall feeling of hopelessness, of helplessness, of suspense, of fear, of brutality, of disgust, and it is amazing for that. The best thing this movie does, in my opinion, is it doesn't show us Billy. Now, some people might be going, oh, but I wanted to see Billy. This movie would be so much better if we got to look at the killer. This is an old school movie. It doesn't show you the monster. It shows you little glimpses here and there. You can make out an eyeball, a hand, whatever it may be, but a silhouette. But we're not going to show you the monster. And that in and of itself is truly refreshing. Because nowadays I feel like you get too much. Movies like this that know how to hold it back and never give it to you makes you want to watch it again, makes you want more. I love that about this movie. So I think the best thing this movie does is keeping our antagonist shrouded. And boy, does Bob Clark do it well. Black Christmas is one of those movies. What else is there to say about it? We've talked about the acting. We've talked about the atmosphere. We've talked about the suspense. We've talked about pretty much the whole movie as a whole being incredible. What else is there really to say about this movie? If you're a horror fan and you haven't seen this movie, I urge you to watch this movie, especially this time of year, before this time of year is over. You're doing a disservice to yourself as a horror fan, let alone just as a human being, if you haven't seen this movie. This is a movie that I think will really, really climb the list for a lot of you as your favorite holiday horror film. I think that it'll be one you watch every year. I don't think it'll be one you ever regret getting turned on to. I genuinely believe that. This movie is one of those perfect 5 out of 5 star movies. There's not much more that needs to be said about Black Christmas that hasn't already been said. I love this film. I love the 2006 version of it as well. They're very different. If you want the suspense, if you want the fear, if you want the enthralling, captivating narrative, this is the movie for you. If you want the fun, the gore, the depravity, Black Christmas 2006 is for you. There's something for everyone in these two movies. And I've loved covering these two again on this series because I always love revisiting them, and I always love talking about a movie that I love. So I hope that you guys are also a fan of Black Christmas. And I hope if you haven't seen it, you check it out now. And I hope if you're not a fan, give it another chance. Because this is easily one of, if not the best, Christmas horror film ever made. So yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this edition of Fireside Chats. Later this week, we'll have another episode up. And one next week. There's a few more Christmas horror films that I want to sit by the fire and chat with you guys about. But until then, remember to like this video, leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of Black Christmas. Share it on social media. We are almost at 3K. Almost there. Let's get there before the end of the year. Follow me on social media, support the channel on patreon.com, and listen to the Uneeda Horror Podcast now at Planet CHH. This is Nick from the Lost River Drive-In. I got a fire to tend to.